Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering College Meltdown as fired professor sues for $19 million after refusing to go woke. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. UCLA professor suspended after refusing lenient grading for black students, demands $19 million plus in damages. Also from the College Fix, UCLA removes professor for questioning proposal to give black students preferred grading. And the history on this from the Daily Mail, suspended UCLA professor is put under police protection and says he is the sacrificial lamb used to placate the angry mob after he refused to leniently mark black students' exams in wake of George Floyd's death. From the College Fix, UCLA professor suspended after refusing lenient grading. A professor who sued UCLA after he was suspended in the wake of the George Floyd-Black Lives Matter riots, after refusing a request to grade black students leniently, will soon get his day in court. UCLA accounting lecturer George Klein is demanding well over $19 million in damages in a lawsuit scheduled to go to trial March 4th in a Santa Monica, California courthouse. The two sides have engaged in legal wrangling since September 2021, when Klein first filed suit, including a failed attempt by UCLA's lawyers to get the case dismissed by summary judgment. The causes of action to be hashed out next month are breach of contract, retaliation, false light and neglect, and negligent interference with prospective earnings. Klein's attorney, Steve Goldberg, told the College Fix in a telephone interview this week the lion's share of the damages are based on the estimated loss of Klein's expert witness practice income. Quote, that practice went to ashes right after he was suspended, said Goldberg. So this isn't really about losing his income as a lecturer or a professor. This is about him losing actual income because he can't appear as an expert witness in other people's lawsuits. You get paid very well for that, especially if you're his kind of expert. But not anymore for Gordon Klein, because the college ruined his reputation. UCLA's Media Relations Division did not provide a comment on the lawsuit despite repeated requests. Klein, who joined the UCLA Anderson School of Management in 1981, continues to teach as a full-time lecturer there. But his lawsuit alleges he had made most of his money as a litigation expert. He has testified, for example, in several high-profile court cases, including Michael Jackson's wrongful death, Apple's acquisition of Dr. Dre's Beats headphones, and the valuation of General Motors' assets in bankruptcy. Quote, he was one of the top damages experts in the country who was historically bringing in well over $1 million a year and trending upwards when it happened, Goldberg said. Klein's lawsuit alleges the controversy and bad press that surrounded him in June 2020 made him untouchable as a litigation expert. The crux of the controversy took place following Floyd's death when Klein received a request asking that he provide academic leniency for his black students enduring emotional duress. It was a relatively common request at the time among college students at several universities as the nation was gripped with racial tension and rioting. Klein responded June 2, 2020 by asking how he was supposed to identify black students in the online class, whether he should also go easy on white students from Minneapolis, how much leeway to show half black students, and how the student feels about Martin Luther King Jr.'s admonition to not evaluate people based on the color of their skin. A screenshot of Klein's response was distributed widely and decried by students in messages and on social media. In response, Anderson School Dean Antonio Bernardo wrote in a June 4, 2020 memo to the campus community that Klein was suspended and an investigation was underway. While not naming Klein specifically, Bernardo's memo referred to the high-profile incident as troubling conduct by one of our lecturers. Quote, conduct that demonstrates a disregard for our core principles, including an abuse of power, is not acceptable, he added. I deeply regret the increased pain and anger that our community has experienced at this very difficult time. We must and will hold each other to higher standards. Klein was reinstated less than a month later, but his lawsuit alleges the damage was already done. A petition calling for Klein to be fired garnered more than 21,000 signatures, stating, quote, we ask your support in having Professor Klein's professorship terminated for his extremely insensitive, dismissive, and woefully racist response to his students' request for empathy and compassion during a time of civil unrest. A petition in support of Klein launched a week later drew nearly 77,000 signatures. Klein's lawsuit also alleges emotional distress as he received death threats by phone and email, including anti-Semitic tropes. Under the causes of action, Dean Bernardo may be held personally liable for punitive damages, which means the college is getting sued, but the guy is also getting sued personally. People can lose their houses over things like this. UCLA, in court documents, has argued Bernardo's memo did not take issue with Klein's decision not to leniently grade black students, but rather his tone in response to the request. However, Klein's attorneys argue that what UCLA did was basically punish the educator for following state and federal law that forbids discrimination on the basis of race. Quote, it's a big case not only because of the effect on Gordon Klein, but it obviously has important implications for academic freedom at the university level, which is a big hot topic around the country, Goldberg told The Fix. And here's the history on this from the Daily Mail. Suspended UCLA professor is put under police protection and says he is the sacrificial lamb used to placate the angry mob after he refused to leniently mark black students' exams in the wake of George Floyd's death. The UCLA professor, suspended after refusing a request for lenient marking of black students' exams, says he was the sacrificial lamb used to placate the angry mob. Gordon Klein said he was following a directive from the university that they should absolutely continue the traditional policy and give the exam as scheduled. A student had written to Klein to suggest the final for Klein's Principles of Taxation course might be canceled, shortened, or graded differently for black students in the wake of George Floyd's death, but the accounting professor at the university's Anderson School of Management replied and denied their request for leniency. He is now said to be under Malibu police protection in the wake of threats following his decision. This is how hot this situation got. He needed to be under police protection. Klein was placed on involuntary leave after students slammed him as being racist and dismissive. He believed it was easy for the university to simply jettison him to placate the angry mob. Klein added, I got a directive, as did my colleagues, that we should absolutely continue the traditional policy of the university and give the exam as scheduled, with only the normal excuses such as you're in a car accident or you had a death in the family. I followed the specific direction my boss gave me, and the school knows it. Professor Klein added, I can leave it to others to figure out why I was the one who was chastised for the action. In my case, I've been there 39 years. I've always been outspoken as an advocate of equal treatment of all students. I've always been noted for compassion, but I'm somebody who's on the verge of retirement. The best I can figure out, they needed the sacrificial lamb. That's what my colleagues have told me. A Change.org petition calling for him to be fired has attracted more than 20,000 signatures. The petition calls for support in having Klein's employment terminated for his extremely insensitive, dismissive, and woefully racist response to his students' request for empathy and compassion during a time of civil unrest. The saga unfolded on June 2nd after students who described themselves as non-black allies requested a no-harm final exam that could only benefit students' grades, for shortened exams, and extended deadlines for final assignments and projects. The students wrote that in light of recent traumas, we've been placed in a position where we must choose between actively supporting our black classmates or focusing on finishing up our spring quarter. We believe that remaining neutral in times of injustice brings power to the oppressor, and therefore staying silent is not an option, they wrote. Klein replied and denied their request for leniency. Quote, thanks for your suggestion in your email below that I give black students special treatment given the tragedy in Minnesota, he wrote. Do you know the names of the classmates that are black? How can I identify them since we've been having online classes only? His email also questioned how biracial students, if there are any in the class, should be treated, asking, quote, are there any students that may be of mixed parentage, such as half black, half Asian? What do you suggest I do with respect to them? A full concession or just half? He also asked if any white students from Minneapolis might be going through their own trauma, worried that they would be seen as racist because of what happened in their city and how they should be handled. Klein said he meant nothing offensive in any of the remarks. He was trying to get people to think. That's the kind of response you send when you want people to think about what they're actually saying. Klein said the student, whom he declined to identify, wrote back to apologize, adding that he didn't mean to be offensive. The two had known each other from a previous class, and in the student's first email, he thanked Klein for providing him and others with anti-racist resources. By the next day, however, Klein's email was trending on Twitter. An online petition demanding he be fired was launched by another student, and the dean of UCLA's Anderson School of Management, where Klein had taught for 39 years, was demanding answers. Some of those responding to the online petition were mostly offended by his email's closing remarks, in which he paraphrased Martin Luther King's famous statement that people should be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. Klein, who is white, said he wrote that as an admirer of Dr. King. Klein said Wednesday, "I cited in my email my belief in Martin Luther King's principles. I called Minnesota a tragedy. The school simply doesn't care. They want to placate the angry mob. And it's a tragedy for the future of education because historically, the faculty code of conduct says you must not have a choice. You must grade people based on merit. The school is disregarding its own policies in favor of the squeaky wheel, those who threaten to riot." Klein says he's now receiving threats and wants his reputation restored after what he calls unfounded allegations of racism. In a brief statement, UCLA said, quote, "The lecturer is on leave from campus and his classes have been reassigned to other faculty." The statement added that UCLA is committed to creating a learning, working, and living environment that is free from discrimination, harassment, or retaliation, and that the university investigates all allegations involving those issues. Klein said, quote, "I would like to get my reputation restored, and I will engage in a lawful means from our legal system to ensure that occurs." Quote, "It is the height of ludicrousy for anyone to suggest that a single bone in my body is racist." After a brief phone call with his dean the day of the emails, Klein learned he was being placed on involuntary leave until June 24th. Klein holds a law degree as a certified public accountant and the author of textbook Ethics in Accounting, a Decision-Making Approach, according to his UCLA bio. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.